Society has created a bottomless hole inside you and now sells you the tools to fill it. Have you ever wondered why, even after each new achievement, each new purchase, each new salary increase, the feeling of emptiness remains? Or worse, grows? This is not your fault. It's the perfect design of a system that depends on your insatiability. The truth is, you have been programmed to never have enough, and the program works better than you might think. We live in a paradox. We have never had so much, and we have never felt so empty. Modern man is a willing slave, trapped in the illusion that the next acquisition will bring the satisfaction he lacks. You live in an invisible cage of constant comparison. You work harder to buy more to compensate for working more. Then he works even harder to maintain what he bought. And the cycle repeats itself. And so we are trapped between two worlds, a primitive impulse to accumulate, a vestige of our evolution, and a modern marketing machinery that amplifies this instinct to the extreme. The ongoing tension is this: your brain has been programmed to survive in times of scarcity, but it is being manipulated in an age of abundance. The issue is not just financial, it's existential. What is, after all, enough? It is here that Epicurus, a Greek philosopher from the 3rd century BC, offers us a vision that challenges the entire modern concept of satisfaction. Epicurus proposed that true wealth is not in having much, but in needing little. For him, human happiness does not depend on the abundance of possessions, but on the limitation of desires. Nothing is enough for those who consider little enough, he said. In other words, the problem is not the lack of resources, but the uncontrolled abundance of desires. Epicurus distinguished between 3 types of desires: those that are natural and necessary, food, water, shelter; those that are natural but not necessary, more refined food, a larger house; and those that are neither natural nor necessary, fame, excessive power, extreme wealth. Wisdom is to satisfy the first type, limit the second, and completely reject the third. Contrary to what late capitalism teaches us, happiness is not in infinite accumulation, but in deliberate self-sufficiency, what Epicurus called autarkia, the ability to be sufficient for oneself. Let's translate this into our reality. While social media, algorithms, and advertising work endlessly to create new desires in you, Epicurean philosophy suggests that your true financial liberation lies in turning off these desire triggers. The scary truth is this: the current economic system depends on you never feeling satisfied. It's not a bug, is the central feature. How does this concept of enough manifest in our daily lives? Let's start with work. Most people fall into a cycle of working to consume and consuming to compensate for work. The result? A life of 40, 50, sometimes 60 hours a week in the service of desires that are not always yours. Imagine John, a 45-year-old executive. He works 60 hours a week to maintain a house he barely frequents, a car he only uses to go to work, and luxurious vacations that serve mainly to post photos that prove his status. When asked why he doesn't reduce his workload, he says he needs to maintain the standard. What pattern? The pattern that keeps you working 60 hours a week. The circularity of this reasoning is evident, and you see it around you every day. In relationships, the same logic applies. How many people do we know who bounce from partner to partner, from house to house, from city to city, always in search of what would be better or more? The inability to define what is enough creates chronic instability. It's what I call next thing syndrome, the condition of those who always believe that happiness is just around the corner, in the next acquisition, in the next achievement, never in the present. What about money? Here is where the concept of enough becomes more crucial and, paradoxically, more nebulous. The financial truth that no one wants to admit is that there is a very specific point where more money stops bringing more happiness. Studies show that after covering basic needs and some amenities, increasing income produces diminishing returns in terms of well-being. But here's the hidden test that life presents us with. Can you recognize when you've reached that point? Or are you conditioned to always want more, regardless of how much you already have? Here is the second hidden test. Can you resist the social pressure to increase your standard of living in proportion to your earnings? Because that's what the system expects you to do. Look at the professional athletes who make millions and still declare bankruptcy, or executives with stratospheric salaries who continue to experience chronic burnout because they aren't there yet. Where exactly did they arrive? The system doesn't want you to define enough, because by doing so, you become immune to its manipulations. From a practical perspective, defining enough means establish clear limits for work, protecting time for what really matters. Create a budget based on values, not social comparison, practicing what the Stoics called voluntary poverty, periods where you deliberately live on less to reinforce your independence from consumption. Develop what I call status immunity, the ability to be unaffected by the material displays of others. Notice how the definition of enough acts as a shield against economic manipulation. When you know what is enough, you are no longer vulnerable to marketing, social comparison, and lifestyle pressure. Financially, this translates into 3 concrete forms of freedom. First, freedom of time. When you know what's enough, you don't need to sell every hour of your life to maintain an inflated standard. Second, freedom of choice. With fewer financial demands, you can say no to jobs, situations, and people that don't align with your values. Third, freedom from anxiety. Most financial stress comes not from a lack of money, but from a lack of clarity about what we really need. The benefits for those who apply this principle are evident. People who consciously define enough report greater job satisfaction, more stable relationships, and surprisingly, greater net wealth over time. This is due to what I call the containment effect. By limiting the growth of desires and expenses, you create a surplus that can be invested, generating true financial freedom, not just the illusion of it. On the other hand, the consequences of ignoring this philosophy are devastating. We see this in the rising rates of burnout, chronic debt, and the existential void that characterizes so many seemingly successful lives. Ultimately, the question of enough is not about minimizing ambition or accepting mediocrity. It's about directing ambition toward what truly brings meaning, rather than dispersing it in an endless search for more. Contemporary philosopher Alain de Botton suggests that true luxury is not owning expensive objects, but having control over your own time and thoughts. This is the true richness that the concept of enough offers us. The problem is that this idea challenges the entire foundation of our economic system. A society of satisfied people is disastrous for a system that depends on perpetual growth in consumption. Think about it. The modern economy depends on you never feeling complete. Your insatiability is the fuel of this engine. You are not just a consumer, is consumed. But there's a profound irony here. Those who can define enough often end up richer than those who pursue limitless wealth. Warren Buffett, with his billions, still lives in the same house he bought for $31,500 in 1958. His definition of enough has allowed him to accumulate wealth without it consuming him. So, the real millionaire brain is not the one who is always calculating how to earn more, but the one who is clear about what is enough. This is the financial sophistication that few achieve. In the silence of every purchasing decision, in the space between desire and action, there lies a question that few have the courage to ask. Is this really necessary for my happiness? The real prison does not have iron bars, but endless shelves. And true freedom is not being able to buy everything, but not needing anything other than what really matters. Authentic wealth begins when you define enough. At that moment, you stop being a consumer and become the deliberate architect of your existence. If this video awakened something in you, write in the comments, "Enough is liberation." Millionaire Brain, where thought becomes freedom.